Sports Final starts right now.
Hello, welcome into a new season of Sports Final coming up tonight.
We'll be bringing you coverage of Ithaca Bombers action, Cornell Big Red, and even some Section 4 high school sports.
And even a little later, freshman quarterback for the Bombers, Wahid Nabi, will be joining the program to chat with me about his current season, what he expects for the Bombers as the season goes on.
All that and more coming up on Sports Final.
Also, we're very excited for this brand new season. As a lot of Ithaca sports to cover, I'm John Sokoloff.
And I'm Alex Haessig. We're so excited to be your host for this season of Sports Final.
And this week, Alex, the Bombers football team, we'll get into them a little later, but obviously they had the bye this week, and there were a few other sports that happened over the weekend on the South Hill.
There was plenty of action going on the South Hill this week, and a pair of matchups between Ithaca and Clarkson in soccer. The men's and women's teams took on Clarkson in their first Liberty League matchup. So we'll take a look at the men's matchup first. On Saturday, the men's soccer team took on Clarkson its inaugural Liberty League game. Bombers fought hard but fell by a score of 2-1, but junior striker Nate Mansfield scored the lone goal for the Bombers in the 16th minute. Ithaca held the lead until Clarkson knotted it up in the 44th minute and took the lead in the 78th minute for good on a goal from John Jones. Ithaca drops to 4-3-1 on the season and 0-1 in Liberty League action. However, men's wasn't the only one with Clarkson. The women also took on the Golden Knights and fell by the same score of 2-1. But stellar midfielder Shoshana Bestrosian found the back of the net in the 15th minute for her team, and it's her team-leading 5th goal on the campaign. But the Bombers didn't hold that lead for long as Clarkson answered back with 2 goals in nearly a 15-minute span. The Bombers fall to 2-5 on the season and 0-1 in conference play. Moving along, the Ithaca College field hockey team also had a big matchup this week in their first Liberty League matchup. They took on Union and had to make the trek there for this contest. And the Bombers dominated the opening half, outshooting Union 11-1. Meg Dowd actually scored the only goal for the Bombers on the day, but they took that lead into halftime. They were feeling good about themselves. But then Union came out, and it was a total twist. Union took over the second half, playing stingy defense, and they put 3 shots in the back of the net to secure the 3-1 win. And we jump ahead to Ithaca women's volleyball, who had doubleheader on Friday and Saturday. On Friday, the Bombers defeated Bard College in a 3-0 sweep. Regan Stone led the way with 7 kills for Ithaca. On Saturday, Ithaca squared off against Vassar and dropped a tough decision 3-1. Again, Stone contributed 16 kills, and Joelle Goldstein added 11 of her own. The Bombers' record stands at 7-5 and 1-1 in conference play. So, John, it's safe to say Bombers had a busy week, and we did miss the football, but they enjoyed their first taste of action in Liberty League for a couple of those teams.
Well, Alex, let's take a look at the Bombers last week as they opened up Liberty League play to take on St. Lawrence. Now, it's for a while, Ithaca's been in the Empire 8, and they just joined the Liberty League this season. So they opened up conference play against St. Lawrence last week. And the first 2 weekends of the season were tough for the Bombers. They lost to Alfred week 1, which was their first week 1 loss in 20 years, barely dropping to them 20-17. And then week 2 against Brockport, a rough 31-0 loss. So it was a really tough debut for the Bombers. Then they had their most important game by far against St. Lawrence last weekend. Let's take a look at those highlights. The freshman quarterback, Wahid Nabi, got the start for Ithaca. He had 357 yards on the day. And the Bombers it was a really great game for them. The first play from scrimmage, Alex, it was an 80-yard touchdown to Will Gladney, who of busted coverage from Frank Martino, who had a great block. And then Ithaca was able to get a touchdown in the first 30 seconds. They didn't have a touchdown in the first 6 quarters. So that was a great way to start out the game. And then their defense let St. Lawrence get off the field. It was a 3-and-out, and then there was a fake punt by Jackson Reaper, the punter, for St. Lawrence. That extended the drive, ending with a Travis Marnell touchdown for St. Lawrence. So let's take a look at the highlights. There's that play I was talking to you about before with Will Gladney as he got to that far sideline off the block and he stiff arms Brendan Donahoe and got all the way into the end zone for the touchdown. The Bombers had that 7-0 lead, their first in 6 quarters. In this game, it only took them 30 seconds. Here's the fake punt I was talking about. Jackson Reaper kept it himself, and look at Kenny Bradley, who read that the whole time, was just a little bit late getting there, and he was able to get the first down by only a couple of inches, which extended this drive for the St. Lawrence Saints. A little later, you see the athleticism from their quarterback, Sean Richardson. He used to play wide receiver for them, and he made his debut at quarterback against Mount Union, a powerhouse at this level, and he put up 21 points. There you see him keeping himself for a run, and then a little later in the drive, he finds Travis Marnell on that touchdown to the left side to tie it up at 7, but however, they would miss that extra point, so now it was only 7-6. Then the Bombers bouncing back. Wahid Nabi gets great protection from that offensive line, and he finds Andrew Vito wide open on the left side for the touchdown for the Bombers to go up 14-6, a beautiful throw and a little freshman connection. Then a little later, Nabi to that left sideline, a little bit underthrows J.R. Zazzara, and it's intercepted. Then you see a little bit of a bad blood between the teams after that one gets off. Still that 14-6 lead. We get almost close to halftime, and Nabi throws it over the middle, and just a bad read there, an interception. So the Bombers ended that first half with no extra points on that drive. The second half, we go. Nabi feels a little pressure from Chris Ryan, is brought down in the backfield. The Bombers still only had a little bit of that lead, and then throws to the right side, one-on-one coverage with Will Gladney. And if he's one-on-one, Alex, he's going to make the catch every time for the touchdown. Then that made the Bombers have a 3-possession lead. They would go on to win the game 24-13. So it was a good weekend for the Bombers as they opened up Liberty League play.
It was certainly a great bounce-back win, first in the career of head coach Dan Swanstrom. So certainly a lot to look forward to in Bomberland regarding football.
Yeah, and we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be talking all things Cornell sports, and also make sure to follow us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our first episode of Sports Final of the season. John Sokoloff, again, joined by Alex Haessig. And Alex, we went over a good amount of the sports that happened on the South Hill over the weekend, but Cornell, or our friends on the East Hill, definitely had some action as well.
Oh, yeah, they had a busy week, too. And you'd be surprised. One of the biggest matchups took place on the hardwood, and it was not basketball. It was volleyball. Cornell women's volleyball team had a big match against their rival Columbia in an Ivy League matchup. Cornell, the match marked the first conference contest for both squads. Raising the stakes for Cornell is the fact they're trying to get back to 500. So let's take a look at the highlights. Cornell Big Red squaring off against Columbia, and we pick it up in the first set. And both teams were locked in early as they embark on a long rally. Really emphasis on the long here. They're trading blows. This is back and forth action, but the Big Red do prevail on this play. It's quite remarkable. It's off the kill by Emily Wemhoff, who was set up beautifully by Zoe Chamness, who kept finding her big hitters all day. So that put Cornell up 18-15 early in the first set. Later in the set, Columbia's Jamie Daly serving, and Cornell comes back with a kill from Samantha Arenas off this play. Again, Chamness dishing it out to her hitters. She did a great job all day finding those big swings on the outside. So Cornell takes the first set 27-25. In the second set, Kit McCarthy tries to put the ball away, but the big block is thrown up by Chichi Ikawazawa. Columbia gets within 5, trailing 9-4. But the very next play, Cornell serving, and a big missed block by Jada Stackhouse leads to another Columbia point, pulling them closer, and they eventually took that second set. We jump to the third set, and we catch these two teams in another back-and-forth rally. The action just keeps going, but Kit McCarthy redeems herself, hits it off the block, and Columbia, to get the point on Columbia, Cornell pulls within a point and eventually takes that set. In the fourth and final set, Laura Stubbs hits it long, giving Columbia that early lead, putting them up 12-10. But later in the fourth, these two teams continue to throw their best shots, but eventually the ball caroms off Columbia's Ikuzawa. Cornell goes on to win the match in 4 sets. So Cornell improved to 5-5. They're doing well. What's going on with Cornell soccer, John?
I'm Brett Mayerson. A hard-fought game here at Bourbon Field at Cornell University, where after going down early in the game 1-0, the Cornell Big Red come back with 2 unanswered goals to take a 2-1 victory, their second consecutive victory, their first coming off of a big win in overtime against number 11 ranked Syracuse.
Second straight
2 straight wins now for the Big Red.
In the first half, here is
St.
St. Francis with Federico Curbelo scoring off of a header from a free kick, and that would put St. Francis up 1-0, taking that 1-0 lead into the first half. Now in the second half, here comes Cornell. Tommy Hansen puts it right past the goalkeeper, and that would make it a 1-1 game. Cornell would tie it. Emotions were starting to flare. Big moment for the Big Red. Now off of a free kick here, Hansen involved again, off of Tommy Hansen and over to Walter Prince, who would put it into the back of the net, and that would seal the deal for the Big Red, who would hold on to win the game 2-1. We caught up with head coach John Smith and Walter Prince after the game.
I think it was a bad coaching decision for me in the first half. The way I set the team up and playing a 4-1-4-1, it was a little bit too defensive, and we allowed them to get happy. I mean, we allowed them to ping long balls at us, and it was that first half performance was on me. The second half, I think we came out with a lot more energy. We changed it up and put 2 up top, and I think that was the big difference. And our 2 up top held the ball up, and we kind of ran the back 4 ragged. And if you notice, the number 5, he's a good player, but he got tired. I think he pulled a muscle in that period of time, and that was the big difference. Just a bad coaching decision from me in the first, and we made an adjustment. And all fairness to the guys, they went out in the second half and brought the intensity.
All right, and I saw that you put Walter Prince in the game's second half, and he had a very good second half. He totally changed the dynamic of your team. What does he bring to your roster when it comes to the crunch time in this game to win?
Well, there's a will to win, and he brings a physicality, so he competes for everything. And I always tell strikers, you've got to make a good ball out of a bad ball, and he does a great job of that. So even balls that look like they're in the defender's favor, he'll do everything in his power to compete for it, and that puts defenders off. It's what we call, it softens defenders up, and he did a wonderful job of it in the second half. They didn't really want to know once we started competing more with 2 strikers.
Well, the Cornell men's soccer team had a huge upset earlier in the week, beating 11th ranked Syracuse on the road in the Carrier Dome. That's a very impressive win for a team that was 1-3-1 at the time. So they shocked many, beating them, and there was the junior reserve Ryan Hill was able to get the goal to lift them in overtime. So this week they were playing against St. Francis. They were looking to get to that 500 mark because they just beat Lafayette the game before. So really trying to use that momentum. Let's take a look at the highlights. Early on in this one, a corner kick from Gimenez leads to a Curbelo header goal. St. Francis takes an early 1-0 lead over the Cornell Big Red. Now, a few minutes later in this one, St. Francis had a fast break opportunity. A pair of slide tackles by Cornell's defense by Ryan Bain and Evan Austin prevent the shot on the goal. Great defense by the Big Red. Later on in that first half, Cornell with a long shot towards the goal, trying to get it in there, but Roberto Bazzichetto was very active in net. He got the save on that one. So time winding down that first half, same score. Charles Touche with the ball in the far side, and he kicks it over the net. So that shot obviously not able to go. Cornell's offense really struggled in that first half. Let's move over to the second half. Eric Nuss with a long shot towards goal, but again, a diving save by Roberto Bazzichetto. So that one, a great one there, slide tackling Cornell, and they still had the lead, but not until Tommy Hansen manages his way to sneak through the defense and find the back of the net. The freshman got the goal to tie the game up for the Big Red, but Alex, a little later, he wasn't done. A corner kick hits about 4 different Cornell players right by the net, and eventually kicked in again by Hansen. So Cornell was able to take the lead and get the win 2-1. But then a little bit of extracurricular activities at the end of the game here. Jimenez gets into it with some of Cornell's players, as you can see here at the bottom of the screen. Now the game had already concluded, so it was a red card. So now he's ejected because of the NCAA rule. Next week's game he will be suspended because of the red card after the game had concluded.
Yeah, that's a really unfortunate turn of events right there for Cornell. So we will send it out to Jack Arpey, who had more on the Cornell women's volleyball.
It was back to work this week for the Cornell women's volleyball team as the Big Red opened the 32nd Ivy League season against Columbia at the Newman Arena. Since 1986, that term Ivy League has been injecting an air of prestige into the women's volleyball program, one which currently boasts 3 Ivy League titles. That air of prestige and the level of pressure involved in Ivy League play is the reason that nerves were a bit amped up this week as the Big Red hit the hardwood. For head coach Trudy Vanberg, it's the task of getting that first Ivy League win out of the way that keeps those nerves on high.
There is a lot more nerves, a lot of build up to it because we want to do so well in the Ivy Leagues. So I knew that first set was going to be a little bit ugly, and it was. So I'm glad that we settled down after that second set and kind of took care of business after that.
Vanberg does not, however, allow those nerves to impact her coaching style.
As far as when we're playing in our first Ivy League match, I try to coach exactly the same as I do in any other match.
While libero Kylie McPeak takes note of her unique position as an Ivy League athlete, she finds it best to just put those thoughts aside and focus on the task at hand.
Got to do what you got to do. I mean, we all worked really hard to get here. Being in the Ivy League is a unique position because you have academics and athletics, which is tough for a lot of people to do because you have prelims and you have a ton of work during the week. But when you get to practice that you have to kind of settle down and focus on what you're doing, which isn't always easy when you have the pressures of Cornell. And so,
in the end, the hard work paid off as the Big Red were able to defeat Columbia, taking 3 out of 4 sets. For Coach Vanberg, it was both teamwork and an effort to improve on their weaknesses that was most important in nailing down that win.
I loved how Emily and Jenna came out to play and made some really good plays for us. Took some nice swings. We made plays when we needed to, and that has been kind of our Achilles heel so far this year.
It was a big day here on the East Hill for the Cornell women's volleyball team, nailing down that first Ivy League win against the stubborn Clarkson squad in 4 action-packed sets. The Big Red will ride this emotional high into yet another Ivy League matchup, facing Harvard University next week in Cambridge. For ICTV Sports Final, I'm Jack Arpey.
Actually, we'll be heading to break. Be sure to follow us on social media, and we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us for the season premiere of Sports Final. We're going to keep the good times rolling and transition into some Bomber football coverage. I'm joined now by Taylor Muench, our high school sports host, so he's joining us at the main desk for a little bit. Taylor, how's it feel to be in the big leagues right now?
It feels good to be on the big desk. The audience will see me later at my little high school desk, but right now it feels good to be with you guys.
All right.
Great to have you, gotta say.
Yeah.
Let's cut right to the chase. Bomber football, what are you guys seeing out there so far?
Well, if you think of the first few weeks, obviously, it's a brand new head coach, new offense with the spread, and a lot of new recruits, and a new quarterback, too. So it's a completely new system. First 2 weeks had a few tough tests. Alfred was a really powerhouse team last season. They lost to Mount Union in the quarterfinal game. So just playing them at Butterfield week 1 with all the new things that we talked about, a completely new regime for this Bombers football program. And now all of a sudden, they almost have the win, but barely at the end of it. Alfred gets that touchdown in that fourth quarter, so they're able to get the win, and 20-17. So that was a tough one for the Bombers. Then week 2, Joe Germanario, they go up against him, a guy who was 10 for 10 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in his debut against the Bombers. That's another tough matchup for this defense, who even played great. Even when I talked to head coach Dan Swanstrom about it, he was talking about how even though the defense put up 31 points, it wasn't indicative as to how they played. You look at yards per play and everything along that line, everything was coming along nicely, and he wasn't too upset after that. So really, with the success now, after those first 2 games, learning from those mistakes and really just combining everything in practice, filling the holes, filling the voids, and then going up against St. Lawrence in the first conference game, which is by far the most important. Absolutely. They come out into that one and get the win with the new freshman quarterback, Wahid Nabi. So he was a huge key to their success this week. But everything else, every part of this team's getting better, and they're growing together as a team.
They are absolutely growing as a team. And, just getting that first win against St. Lawrence, a Liberty League opponent, that was huge. Yeah. And getting that, that was off the shoulders of Dan Swanstrom. He really wanted that first win. and this team looked great in that win. Last year, they struggled a lot with their offensive line. Protecting the quarterback. Wolf Schaefer, the quarterback last year, had a really tough time getting rid of the ball because he was being sacked once every 4 snaps. So the offensive line has looked much improved. Tristan Brown is getting through some holes. He's playing pretty well. And then you have Will Gladney, the sophomore. He's the sophomore sensation. I mean, he's 6'2". He can get any single pass that is thrown to him. Like you said earlier, if it's single coverage, he's going to get it every single time. So Will Gladney's incredibly impressive. You have J.R. Zazara, who's a leader on this team. Right now, you have the pieces to put together a really good season, even after that 0-2 start. And Wahid Nabi, he'll be on the show later. Exciting kid, really exciting quarterback. You finally have someone that could really lead this program for maybe 4 years. So right now, they're kind of in the driver's seat. Even though they're 1-2, they looked great. They're on a bye week right now. They're getting rest, and they're healthy. So, yeah, it's exciting. I really like the way this team is improving so far.
Now, going off that, you did mention they are in a bye week right now. So, coming off a big win, first conference game, does the bye week sort of stunt that momentum that they took from that win?
I think it doesn't. I think you take a look at those first few weeks, and then you finally get that first win, and by far, again, we talked about it before, by far the most important game of the season. And you got the win, but there were clearly some holes in the game that they're going to try to patch up and fix because this team shows a lot of potential and the ceiling's really high. So now you go into the bye, you have an extra week of preparation to go up against a quarterback in Shane Sweeney on Hobart as you host the Statesman. So that's huge. I think the bye week's really going to help them out and help them grow as a team and just get even better. That week of rest comes perfectly because now they know what they got to do and they just can repair those smaller things.
I couldn't agree more with what John just said. Sweeney is a transfer from UAlbany. He's a former Division I quarterback. He is incredibly impressive. And then they also have an All-American wide receiver who is one of the top players in Division III. Absolutely unbelievable. He's from Florida. So he's played really good high schools. Now he's transitioned to the college game and has been really impressive. And so Hobart is one of the top teams in Division III, one of the top teams in the Liberty League. You definitely need that week to prepare for this team and kind of get things back up and running in practice and prepare for this big game. Because if they can take this game, that might be one of the bigger statement wins of the season against Hobart at home.
Now, we've talked a lot about the freshman quarterback, obviously.
Yep.
He's changed the offense, new dynamic, but who on that offense is a good tool for him to use repeatedly throughout the season? Who can he look for?
So I'm going to beat you to the chase. I'm going to say Will Gladney because Will Gladney is, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on some sort of all-league, all-American list by the end of the season. He is such an impressive player, and he's such a deep ball threat for the defense. He's going to get a lot of targets. And so far, he has gotten a lot of targets, and he's handled that pressure of being one of the top receivers so well. And Wahid Nabi and Will Gladney have been playing so well together so far in that St. Lawrence game. And also J.R. Zazara, who they're playing off each other. So right now, Will Gladney and Wahid Nabi working together, that's a really good combination.
You talk about the combination between those guys. They have nothing but good words to say about Wahid Nabi. They say that his ceiling is through the roof. I talked to J.R. Zazara at practice the other day, at the end of practice, and I asked him, what's Wahid Nabi's ceiling? And he said, just point blank, that this guy has the potential to break every single passing record in Ithaca College football's history in the whole program. That's a pretty big thing.
Absolutely.
But also, you talk about Will Gladney as someone else other than Wahid Nabi. The freshman wide receiver, Andrew Vito, has really been showing a lot. He had that touchdown last week, but in practice, Dan Swanstrom's been utilizing him more, using him more in this offense, and he just has a lot of potential to grow. He's a really smart kid when I've spoke to him, and he sounds like he's ready to learn and grow in the system. And in the spread offense, I think a guy like him can really thrive. And also, you spoke about J.R. Zazara. The first few weeks, it was tough for him to get back. Last year, he dealt with a lot of back issues. And then after that, he had an intestinal issue over the summer, so it was tough for him. But the guy's working hard. He stayed all summer to throw with Adam Fraun to make sure that his quarterback was ready. He stayed on campus and trained very hard. And then last week against St. Lawrence, he bounces back for 4 receptions for 99 yards and almost has a touchdown. He's always one of the most fiery guys on the field, too, so he's another big player. I think basically the common ground that we've been talking about here is this receiving core. They've been great for the Bombers, and they all have their own tools that make them each deadly in their own way.
Yeah.
Now, we have been talking about how we actually did mention very quickly the shift from the E8 to the Liberty League. what do you see ahead for this team as they take on new opponents, new foes, but also we still have those old rivalries intact?
I think it's huge for the Bombers that they moved. I think the Liberty League, the teams obviously have a lot of respect for them, but the Empire 8, between Brockport and Alfred and even Cortland, all those teams there, with Stephen Farrar, with what he's been able to do with Cortland, there's a lot of really good teams here. So I think definitely the quality of level of play that the Bombers are going up against is less significant. However, obviously they know that it's not something to just be able to exhale about and think of a season to be really easy, because now they're going to go into it with I don't really think it's changed their mindset. You know, going up against not weaker opponents, but opponents that aren't as great as teams in the Empire 8. So I think going up against these guys, it's definitely a lot more of an advantage, and the switch is good for this team.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really intimidating teams within the Liberty League. You have Hobart. St. Lawrence is a pretty good team. You have Rochester. So you have some of these schools that can really make possible national championship runs in the Liberty League. Like you said, I thought this was a great move, switching conferences for Ithaca College in general. But we still play Alfred, or Ithaca still plays Alfred. They still play Cortland. So you're getting, and Brockport.
A lot of E8 opponents.
You're seeing a lot of E8 opponents. So the schedule, it isn't too different for them. They played Union last year and the year before. So they see similar opponents. And the schedule change, like John said, I don't think it's going to shift anything mentally for them.
All right, well, we've certainly given out a lot of Bomber info, football, some football talk. So we'll take a quick break. After the break, Taylor Muench will be in his sports corner talking about some
high school debut right
sports.
Bringing it back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really excited. You guys get to see me in my little corner.
All right, so we'll be there after the break. And be sure to follow us on social media, Instagram at ICTV Sports Final, Facebook at Sports Final, and Twitter at ICTV Sports Final. And we're back, and we'll send it over to high school sports with Taylor Muench.
What's up, guys? You met me earlier, but I'm Taylor Muench, and I'll be bringing all the high school sports action from earlier this week. And normally I am joined by my good friend Ben Carlton, but this week he decided that I should show him the ropes and go solo. Anyways, let's get to the highlights. First, we're going to start with some women's soccer action in Athens, Pennsylvania, as the Athens Wildcats are hosting the New York Natives Horseheads in a neighboring state battle. Early in the first half, a great through ball delivered to Skylar Roberts leads to Roberts putting on a clinic as she slashes that ball right to the back of the net. Horseheads looking good early in this one, but their lead doesn't last too long as Rachel Hutchinson delivers that ball right in the goal over the head of all the defenders. Later in the half, Alexandra Strollo boots it, and I am very suspicious of the goalie's effort here as the ball literally just bounces right by her. But hey, I'm no athlete, so I can't judge. Blue Raiders up 2-1. The Wildcats looking to turn the tide now in the second half as the ball gets ping-ponged back and forth, falling at the feet of who else but Rachel Hutchinson, who ends up getting her second goal of the game. If you had her in your fantasy high school soccer league, you would be cashing out right now. And as soccer goes, there's no winner in this battle for state supremacy, as the final of that one was 3-3. Now let's head over for some Friday Night Lights action over in Waverly, as we got a lot of Waverly fans in the area. The Waverly Wolverines have put on a show early, and they brought their JV cheer squad as well, as quarterback for Maine Endwell, Joe Massini, throws the ball and it gets deflected to Tyree Brownlee. It turns a deflection into a reception. Now in the second quarter, Josh Candle busts through the end zone as he rips through defenders to get the touchdown. Later in the third quarter now in the second half, the Wolverines hanging on for dear life. Mike Schaefer makes the completion and squirrels his way for 13 yards. The very next play, watch this one, folks. Gavin Judson finds his tight end, who shows that he doesn't really care for the defense there. If you saw that stiff arm, the kid deserves a soda, I'm telling you. The effort for Waverly just wasn't enough, though, in the end, as Gavin Judson holds on to the pigskin a little too long, and you can book Maine Endwell for the 41-28 victory. Gavin Judson had 4 touchdowns in that game in the losing effort. Unfortunately for Waverly, Maine Endwell stays undefeated. Another undefeated team right now is Elmira Notre Dame. We are going to head out there right now as Elmira Notre Dame is going up against the Spencer Van Eaton Eagles as they came to town. The Crusaders up 14-0 early in this one, but Thomas Llewellyn, finds a way to confuse the cameras as he pulls a disappearing act, and he takes this one to the house. The Eagles cutting into the lead with that saucy run. However, Notre Dame and their offensive line not fazed by that touchdown as Eric Charnetsky bulldozing his way through the defense and with his strength as he gets across there. And I probably couldn't tackle him even if my life was on the line. Fast forward to 1st and goal for Notre Dame, and who else but Eric Charnetsky embarrassing the Eagles' defensive line with his strength as he gets the touchdown. And just seconds after that, after recovering an outside kick, Charnetsky, I'm not worthy, man. He gets 2 touchdowns in this game, and Elmira Notre Dame taking care of business with the 32-20 win. So that's all I got for you guys today, but I'm going to kick it over to the guys who actually know what's going on other than me, and they will be joined by the new celebrity in town, Wahid Nabi, the Ithaca quarterback, right after this break. So stay tuned to the one, the only Sports Final.
Welcome back to Sports Final. I'm John Sokoloff, joined by Ithaca freshman quarterback Wahid Nabi, who led the Bombers to their first win of the season in Liberty League play, got his own first win in his first start, got Dan Swanstrom his first win, and a Gatorade ice bath in his first win of the season. How you doing? Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Making your ICTV debut right now.
Yeah.
Congrats, man. So let's get into it a little bit because everyone's raving about you. I remember talking to you. You said you had got a lot of Instagram followers after that first win.
Yeah.
357 yards and 3 touchdowns. The last time that was done by an Ithaca quarterback was 2005. That's impressive. But I just need to ask you. You came into camp this year as a freshman. There were 6 other quarterbacks besides you. Did you ever think there was a chance that you would not only be the starting quarterback by week 3, but that you would perform the way that you did?
I think whenever you go into a situation like that, you definitely want to have the mentality and the attitude that you're going to get in the game and you're going to be able to play and perform. So if I told you that I didn't expect to ever touch the field, I'd be lying. But just having that attitude and having that mentality is definitely something that helps when you do get out there.
And the graphic that we just showed earlier is a comparison between the last 2 Bombers starting quarterbacks in their debuts. Yours obviously very impressive. Now I want to just talk to you about the recruiting process because I feel like you haven't spoken about that much. What was that like?
I had a great head coach in high school who helped me out with it. He knew what was comfortable for me. He knew what I was going to like, and he told me a lot about what to look for in schools. Never look at the big picture because things are going to change. Coaching staffs are going to change. Look at the school and see if it's something you're comfortable with. So there was a lot of schools that came calling, and I knew right off the bat which schools that I was interested in. So I never hesitated to tell them I'm really not interested, or that it's a school that doesn't fit me particularly well. But I've heard a lot about Ithaca, so when Coach Swanstrom called for the first time, I listened with wide ears and for everything he had to say.
Coach Swanstrom, obviously his first season, your first season, so you guys definitely have that in common ground. Now, in your first game, you come in against Brockport, 17-0 deficit. This is a team that went up against Hobart week 1 on the road and won by multiple scores. This is a powerhouse football team.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come in down 17-0, and your first pass of the game, as it's about to be halftime, is an interception, but it's not your fall off a receiver's hands. What's the key to not getting yourself down after a play like that?
Same thing, just my upbringing as a football player, the coaches I've been around, especially the ones here. It's definitely, every mistake you make is something to learn from, but you can't sit back and just worry about them the whole time. As soon as I got to the sideline, I got one high five and I put it behind me. It wasn't something to be worried about from there. It hit off the receiver's hands, but I'm pretty hard on myself, so I was telling Will that I needed to put that on his body a little bit more, and it's just stuff like that, back and forth, to make you feel better about what happened, because it was a right read, and everything that they did was beneficial for us, but you just got to execute it.
What did Dan Swanstrom say after that play?
He didn't say anything. He gave me a high five. He said, "You're fine," and that's really it. And I sat down on the bench and got ready for the next drive.
I just want to know, what's he been like during this whole process with you? I mean, has his personal experience at quarterback been a little bit of a help? Because at practice every day, we see him working with the quarterbacks later, and he even slings a ball or two every now and then. So does his personal experience help you out?
His personal experience as a coach more than as a player. I mean, he'll come in as a player, as a thrower, and he'll just try and one-up us on every throw. He always likes to say that he's going to embarrass us. But no, it's just the coaches that he's been around, what they've taught him, the players he's been around. Like, he knows how to react to every situation that we have. He knows if we need a little bit more juice, a little bit more focus, everything like that. Just always being on our backs, ready to jump on us if we make a mistake. And it's something that's been pushing a lot of the quarterbacks ahead right now. Just always knowing that we need to be consistent and we need to make the right decisions all the time.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the St. Lawrence game. 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, Liberty League Rookie of the Week, all these honors coming your way, all these Instagram followers coming your way as well. I just want to know, what was that day like for you?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, for me, I'm one of those guys that I like a little bit more to see how my teammates are going to react to it. Checking my phone after, having notifications from people saying great game and stuff, that's always nice, but I'm really tuned into what my teammates are saying, and seeing a lot of those seniors and those guys smiling and being happy that they got their first W for their senior season was something that really meant a lot to me, and it's something that kind of reminds you that it's not over anytime soon, and you need to perform next week too.
Now, what about that Liberty League Rookie of the Week honors? How does that add fuel to your game? Does that give you a whole another level of confidence to raise your ceiling?
I think Coach Swanstrom does enough of that. I think he's honest enough for us to be pushing ourselves beyond those limits and just keep pushing up to his limits and making sure that we live up to our potential. I actually didn't find out about Rookie of the Week until like that Monday morning when someone sent me the screenshot, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, but it's a new week. Sunday's passed, so it's time to get focused.
Still a lot more work to do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I just want to know, what is going to be the key to lift this team to a Liberty League title? I mean, you're definitely in sync with your receivers that showed a lot of talent last year, and some young guys even get involved too, with Andrew Vito as well. What's the key to lifting this team to that Liberty League title? What do you got to work on?
Just as a team as a whole, we have to play off each other better. We need to execute better. We need to bring a lot more juice to practice into games and just be ready to get out there and start winning games. It's not one play that's going to win you a game. It's all 4 quarters. And we just need to keep doing what we've been doing and just do it at a higher level, and we'll be successful.
Finally, before I let you go, I just have to know, what is this team's ceiling? Because when I talk to some receivers on the team about you, they say that you have potential to break every single passing record in Bombers football history, in the whole program's history. So they have that high praise for you. So what's this team's ceiling for the season?
The ceiling's as high as we can take it. With the players we have, with the guys we have with experience, and with everything coming back, it's as high as we can make it go. Pushing each other every day in practice, every game, just trying to get better, 1% better every day is what Coach always says. So if we continue to do that, then there's no saying how successful we can be.
He's Wahid Nabi. The Bombers had the bye this week. Next week they're taking on Hobart. Your first home start. That'll be fun. Yeah. So okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Wahid. I really appreciate it. We'll be right back after the break, and we will go over some other local stuff. We have some top plays coming. We have a A lot left in the final 20 minutes here of Sports Finals, so stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Thanks for sticking around to the very end of our season premiere of Sports Final. It's been a fun episode so far, hanging in there. So let's go right ahead. We're going to take a look at the top 5 plays from the week that was. So without further ado, let's look at the highlights. St. Francis. Tommy Hansen putting the moves on and scoring the goal in the 57th minute to tie that game up. Big goal for Cornell. Now going to number 4 in our countdown, Horseheads girls soccer. Now Horsehead sets up for a free kick on this play, and they place it beautifully over the wall in the back of the net. Horseheads took the lead on this goal, got up 1-0. A little Section 4 action. Shout out to Taylor Muench there. Now we're going to go to number 3, back to that Cornell men's soccer game versus St. Francis. And Tommy Hansen again on this play. He had a busy day, and he gets this beautiful header on the cross. Cornell gets up 2-1 there to secure the win. And look at that celebration. What a great time they're having. A little Big Red celebration. Now we're going to hit the gridiron at number 2, Crusaders football. A little more high school action here, beating out the college competition. And look at this tough run, just taking bodies with him all the way to the end zone. He breaks the pylon for the touchdown. And at number 1, Cornell men's soccer again. Guess we don't get to see it.
Oh man, Cornell men's soccer got that impressive win over St. Francis, definitely. But those were some exciting plays. I love that arm extension there.
Oh yeah.
On that last one.
Break the pylon, get 6 there. Took a couple guys with him, really bringing the pile.
So we've really recapped this past week really well. So I think we should take a look at the week ahead as to what we've got ahead of ourselves between all high school sports, college, whatever. Ithaca, Cornell. So Ithaca games, football at home against Hobart. You just saw Wahid Nabi on this program. Freshman sensation. Then we have volleyball against Alfred. That one's Saturday at 4. And then another game on Saturday. Men's soccer playing St. Lawrence. Ithaca with a whole slate of games at home this weekend. Cornell football against Colgate. Last year, if you remember, Cornell beat Colgate when they were ranked. It was their first win over a ranked opponent in over 30 years. So that was a huge one for them. Then their field hockey team's taking on Columbia. It's Saturday at noon. And women's soccer playing UPenn away in University City in Pennsylvania at 7 o'clock. So those are the Ithaca and Cornell games coming up this week that we'll have the pleasure of seeing, Alex. But yeah, Ithaca versus Hobart's the main one I'm checked at on the board there. I think that's going to be a really fun game. Shane Sweeney's a fun quarterback to watch. You know, D1 transfer like our own Taylor Muench said. So it's definitely going to be a good week. But let's take a look around the NFL now, because we haven't really been able to talk about that a lot. And there was a lot of good action today, a lot of very close games. So, you know, the Bills, your Bills. I know you're a very big Bills fan. We don't like to get too personal here, but they picked up a very impressive win today over the Denver Broncos. That even had Von Miller fired up. He got that penalty flag for faking to help up Tyrod Taylor. A very exciting one, but I know it's early. But what are the chances of the playoffs? Because the AFC doesn't look that strong. Maybe the Bills could make it.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, expectations were low. A lot of trades right before camp broke. A lot of just roster movement with a whole new regime coming in for the Bills. And it really is surprising to see how they're playing so far. And the defense has been really spectacular up to this point. offense is clicking now. Tyrod Taylor had some struggles against Carolina, but still, they had a chance to win that game at the very end. So, I mean, today was all you could ask for.
They were one good throw away to Zay Jones, right? That Panthers game. One good throw away from being 3-0. And last time they started 3-0, I think it was with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It's been a while.
And then he got that big extension, and then
Bills fans don't want to harp on that.
But yeah, that was a very impressive one. But beating Denver today, I know they didn't make the playoffs last year, but that's still the best defense in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's surprising to see because of what Denver did last week against Dallas. We're talking blowout win last week, not even close.
I have a question for you now. With their quarterback, there's a lot of talk with him, with Tyrod Taylor, getting that extension, then they had to renegotiate that contract, and it really worked from the contract aspect. Mm-hmm. Is he worth that money, though? Is he this franchise's guy? Because I feel like his deep ball, like he's kind of small. He can't really see passes over the middle. Is he the team's future quarterback?
Well, I think the genius in what they did was they gave themselves a quarterback for now in restructuring that deal, but they gave themselves an out if they want to move in a different direction. And that's a good thing, as the couple trades they made during the draft, and then the new regime came in, trading Sammy Watkins, picking up a couple more picks. You're setting yourself up with 6 draft picks in the first 3 rounds for this upcoming season. So this whole new regime, already 2-1, could be 3-0, and they haven't gotten their own guys in there yet. So once they can draft to their playing style, maybe get in a new quarterback, but Tyrod has been all right. Man, he's a good game manager right now, but it should be interesting to see what this front office really can do.
I feel like every year the Bills say it's their year, and this is the one year where they stockpile their assets and get everything, like to rebuild for the future. Yeah. And what if this is the year that they end up, ironically, making the playoffs? Who knows? Got a lot to see. I think Sean McDermott's a good coach, and they've got a lot going for them for the future. Another New York team, the New York Giants today. Yes. A very tough loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know about you, Alex, but those first few weeks, they were just insufferable to watch. They've been insufferable. What are they? I think they scored a total of what? Like 13 total points, and now today they're going against Philly, and there were some bigger plays. Sterling Shepard had the big touchdown. The Eagles bring in Jake Elliott, at the end of the game for a 61-yarder. The guy that was on the practice squad of the Bengals, the Eagles just had to bring in because Caleb Sturgis gets hurt. He nails a 61-yarder, just 4 away from the NFL record. A guy that's never even played in the NFL. To beat the Giants, is it a combination? Is it a bad luck solely for this team this year? Because 0-3, I think your percent chances based on history to make the playoffs are 3%.
Yeah, and it's a tough break for a team. Some people were saying, man, maybe this team can win it all this year, because the defense is still up to par. Defense has been great so far this year. There's no complaints there from anyone, but the offense has just had so many problems, which is surprising considering you got Odell on the outside, you added Brandon Marshall, you've got Sterling Shepard. The run game is a concern, but Eli Manning's just struggled so far, and there's not much you can do with an aging quarterback if this is his beginning of his downhill decline. It's just a tough position for the Giants to be in.
I think he's got the most hatred from fans and everyone of a guy who's won 2 Super Bowls of anyone that I've ever seen. I think so. But 0-3 this year, that the other New York team, the Jets, they look better than the Giants right now. At 1-2, they got the win today over Miami. And week 1, they almost beat your Bills. So maybe it's not too much of a rebuild, but that's just all the New York teams there. But overall, looking big picture, because the Pats looked like they were troubled today. The Chiefs look like no one can really slow them down. So real quick, who's your Super Bowl pick?
Super Bowl pick right now, I really like Kansas City. I think they are the whole package right now, as long as Alex Smith continues to be that guy that has that extra gear that he's tapped into this year that we've seen. They have the defense, they have the offense, they have the guys outside that can make plays. I think Kansas City is the pick this year.
Well, that's going to do it for us tonight on Sports Final in our season debut with our brand new desk and high school host. I'm John Sokoloff.
I'm Alex Haessig.
Alex Haessig, Taylor Muench over at the high school desk. Who knows what he's doing right now. But we'll be back with you next week, same time, same place, recapping Bombers football, everything going on in the South and East Hill, and all of your high school sports. So tune in next week, and we'll see you then. Make sure also to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and have a great night.